Welcome back to the Soundcheck podcast. This is the guy that does the podcast, at least half of the guys. My name's Dylan Reese. I'm joined, as always, by my handsome co-host, Adam Yokum. Adam, how you doing?
Good. How we living, Dylan?
Good. I'm excited because today we have our first guest ever on this podcast. This is episode 10. The guest is a great friend of mine, also a friend of yours. Someone that's been a collaborator of mine for almost a decade. Also, he's the other artist that I manage, so feels like a nice family affair here on this episode. Independent hip-hop music legend, however many 100 million streams, I stopped counting. A superstar in Germany, a handsome guy, just a random guy that lives in Tennessee that happens to be really good at music. His name is Abstract. Hello.
Hey, thank you so much for that beautiful intro, Dylan.
Listen,
It's an honor to be here.
I went off script, as you can probably tell. I was talking on my ass, but I mean everything I said. But yeah, excited to have you on the show. Hopefully there'll be some people that are, there's some crossover here, that maybe some people that listen to your music that all also listen to ours. Maybe there'll be some people that like two of us, like they love you guys and hate me. Who knows?
That's probably the most likely.
Yeah. Hey.
Probable.
Yeah. Also, I texted you if you wanted to be on the pod a couple days ago, and I asked you to come up with some stuff that you wanted to talk about, because we kind of just try to make it open-ended, especially not having guests before. I wasn't really sure. Like, I didn't want to interview you. That just felt weird because we already know you and, just want to talk. So you sent me back a video that was 25 minutes long and said, watch this, and then we'll talk about what we watch, which I just thought was very fitting and very abstract of you to give us homework for our own show. And
he said, yeah, I'll come on the show, but you got to do this homework first. Then report back to me.
Put the work in.
So, yeah, why don't you kind of start us out and give people listening some context on what that was that you had us watch? Because I did think it was really interesting, and I think there'll be a lot of good talking points that we can just kind of riff off of. But why don't you set the table for us?
Yeah, I think, especially going into the new year, I was kind of thinking about, I don't know, there's a very much this sentiment of a lot of people are very doom and gloom and like waving the white flag and like, oh, this is the finale of everything. And it's just, and there's, people have a right to feel that way. And I think it's logical to look at the greater world and be like, no one knows what's going on. No one has a sense of direction. No one knows who's steering the ship. It's true. It's probably not wrong. But also, this video makes a big point of like, we love to be like, oh, we're unprecedented times, like everything, da da da. Like we've, as humans, have lived through very many different iterations of society, and we've come out of a lot of dark places. Like what we do best as humans is adapt. That's kind of what we do. And it's easy to be like, oh, there's no hope for the da da da. But this video talks about how the 2030s very well could be, a new renaissance, and kind of the current situation looking very much like the Middle Ages. And, the Middle Ages lasted hundreds of years, but like nowadays he makes a point also about like how things have just sped up crazy. There can be massive change this way or that way on a 5-year level, 10-year level, especially looking at what technology is doing right now. Like it's exponential, and who knows where it's going to land. And, they used to say the type of AI we have today is like a decade away, and they were saying that for decades. And here it is. So I don't know. It's easy to be like doom and gloom, fast forward into doom and gloom and like dystopic idea of where we're headed. Or you can look at things more so through the eyes of like, there are a lot of possibilities these things open up. And even with AI, I love that there are these perspectives about how like actual like the human imperfection of things will actually hold more value in a world that's so over commodified. And so I don't know. I think it's easy to be like, oh, everything, the death of culture, all this stuff is going on and whatnot. But there's always, I'm a huge believer that, in physics, it's of the every action creates an equal and opposite reaction. And I believe I've seen a lot of different things that happens culturally as well. And, even just the mechanics of society and the way we shift back and forth through the way we live our lives. And I don't think it's like always like we know that it's never always like it is. It always changes. It's going to change one direction or this way. So I think to think that it's going to continue to swing in a scary direction is just like ignoring history. We always have our upswings. We always have our downswings. And that's kind of what I found very it's an optimistic view where everyone it's very easy to point at everything and be like, "This sucks, that sucks, this" it's very hard to be like, "Hey, maybe this is creating a new equation and a new answer," you know?
Sure.
Yeah, that's why I thought it was kind of a fun way to kind of talk about that and set people into the new year maybe on a more positive, outlook going into the next, decade.
Yeah, I was gonna ask because I haven't talked to either of you about this. It was just like, yo, let's check this out and then talk about it. But Adam, when you watched it, what feeling were you left with? Was it like a sense of optimism? Or like what were like some things that were like the main takeaways after you checked it out?
I'd say yeah, I was definitely left with optimism. Um, Mainly I was left with just a like contemplative feeling of like just kind of got the gears turning on seeing how things are right now and seeing it in a new way of like I think Luke kind of hit the head on the nail of like it's so easy to feel doom and gloom with AI and everything, and I think everyone has this feeling of like, oh, it's gonna run the world, and who knows where this is gonna take us. And I think it's easy to think about that in a bad way, but I think it was kind of framing it in a way where it's like, well, maybe AI will work in a better way than we can think of where, it'll start taking these mundane jobs and like leave more room for us to have like a artistic growth, like an age of creativity focus because it's like humans have a heartbeat and they have an opinion and they can do things that are human, they can put a soul into it where AI can't do that. So it's like maybe it'll actually bring us to like a really beautiful age of like art flourishing rather than it being suppressed and like, well, like now I can't paint a picture because like Chat GPT can just like script it up. Um, One part of it that I really liked and I thought was like a valuable piece of knowledge from it was I forget what comparison it made because it was everything that was happening in the video was comparing it to similar events that happened in the past. And
Basically like Middle Ages, coming out of the Middle Ages into the Renaissance.
yeah. And it was basically saying that AI could be great, but maybe we just need it to develop more and we need to set specific boundaries on how we allow it to exist. Like maybe it's really great for humanity if AI is like taking over jobs that we don't want to do. But maybe it's not so great if you're just using AI to like generate an image of yourself standing next to Joe Rogan or something. Like that's like a pointless use of it. And if it's using resources like, it uses X amount of like water per year, it has a strain on um global resources, it has a financial strain. If it's this big like having this big impact on our world, maybe we should make sure that it's being used in a useful direction rather than just like open source, like use these resources to kind of make mundane and pointless creations out of it. There was some point about just like focusing the power and ability to use it into something to like further humanity. I thought that was a good take.
It's a hard balance, I think, when it comes to AI, like the democratization of it is like on one point, it's like, yes, if we all have this world changing power, it should be democratized, like should be allowed access to each individual the same amount. But I do agree at the same point, it's like we should get it figuring out the big problems first. Like AI should be solving its own issues first before we like cascade into everything else. Like AI's main thing that it should be researching right now is how to combat its amount of water that it's using, stuff like that, where it's like, let's like kind of reverse engineer it. And then we can go into like, but that's the hard thing too, is that then we're like only a specific subsection of people who are privy on this particular type of research are able to utilize, and then we're handing over, and then it's becoming privatized, a privatized tool. It's so hard because it's kind of one of those things that like cat's out the bag, but it's like, how do we all individually, we don't have any like, we're starting to get like a social faux pas about it of like some type of stuff like slop. We're coming up with different like jargon for the way that we, I guess, have given like this new age of content, like AI slop or stuff like that. Like we're learning how to speak about it, and I think it will come down to like there's some music that has always just sucked. Like even made by humans. Like there's some stuff where it's just like that knows that it's not good, it doesn't want to be good, whatever. And I feel like we're gonna get to a certain thing with art and that type of thing as well. And I think even like when we talk about, I think there'll be a place for it. Like I think AI memes are going to be everywhere. They're going to, that Sora is setting a precedent that like it makes sense that memes would go from their 2D, little photos, and then turn into, little 10-second clips as well. That just feels like an evolution that was coming, whether we want it or not. Are all of those art? No. Maybe some of them are art, but that's also a hard thing too. Is like the description of art. It's like just because someone went and took a photo and invented photography, it didn't mean that like that it still takes an eye. You can still be a photographer and be artistic, but is every painter calling every photographer a fucking fraud?
Right.
Like it's just weird. These things that we're learning, like how as a society to respond to the works created by AI and how to use it as a tool. But that's going to be the hard thing too. Is like it's hard to go back now and be like, oh, we should like put everything into like these particular things. It's like it's open source. Even like DeepSeek is fully open source through China. Like, Chat GPT is going to protect whatever they can over here, obviously. It's like there are massive models that are just now anybody could go make a clone or so it's like the cat's kind of out the bag, but it's like what do we do now with it is the hard thing I think to think about. And like how do we treat it and like what is art? It is that hard thing of like the photographer is still an artist. It's still seeing it saw how it wanted to frame it. So it's like if you looked at a prompt, it's like you're framing it with a prompt and you're doing similar thing. Like you have to have a vision of like, oh, the camera should move in this way. To like that's the one thing I think people lose with AI is that it has to be it's it has to be pushed. It has to be acted upon. It's not on its own accord. It's not like you know, these it's just coming up with its own ideas and generating. It has to be that button has to be pushed by a human. It has to be pushed in that direction. And so it's the same thing with like you could say photography is simple as pushing a button, but is it? It's not. It still takes framing, it takes a good eye, it takes good lighting, it takes understanding. And is that any different than a good prompt? Is that any different than being the best at being able to explain to an AI? It's all these blurred lines that are happening. It's on a cultural level, technological level, it's a hard thing to like, and I think that's why it's such a hot topic and why I also want to talk about it because I think we can all just kind of avoid things and be like, oh, well, just, and then it's like, that Will Smith video of him eating the pasta years ago, it looked like complete, trash. And now it's like an exact video. And that's in a couple years with AI. People think this stuff isn't going to get better and people aren't going to use it more. You're delusional. It's already being used at this much. It's not even that as good as it's going to be. And you think it's going to just fall off. It's not
It's a
for
pretty
particular companies, mate.
it's a pretty inevitable reality at this point. Um, I like what you said about, there's certain ways to use it that are intentional and tasteful to maybe get to what the vision is from an artistic perspective quicker and easier. But there's also the other side of that where, I mean, I could just speak of it in terms of music because that's the industry that we all work in. Like when I see people's cover art that are just like so immediately AI, it just screams AI. It just looks like non-human. The text is like off-centered and it's like there's the first thing that would pop up. Like it makes my skin crawl as a graphic designer and I hate seeing it. But as a graphic designer, there's been moments where I've used AI to process a certain asset. Maybe it's like a detail in the thing that I'm designing, and then I pull from that and bring it into my canvas and like use different textures or like duplicate this and make it a different color. Like there are ways to like pull assets where it would be really hard for me to create that certain thing by like illustrating it myself because maybe I'm not an illustrator, right? But the final product doesn't feel like it was just AI generated and just made by a robot. And
Because it
I
was
think that,
intentional. It was
yeah,
purposeful.
exactly. And I think that's the hard line is like if there's someone that is an artist already and has an artistic brain, these tools can be super useful. But when it's overdone, it just becomes tacky and feels soulless and just not very creative or inspiring in my eyes, you know? One thing that stood out to me about the video, just to make sure like we're giving context, because the whole video wasn't just about AI. It was just like Adam said, the 2030s being the new Renaissance era, similar to, like you said, Middle Ages, like coming out of the 1920s into the 1930s, 1940s. The parallels were like we went through COVID, the economy's down, AI is happening, it's all this new information. The internet is kind of taking over everybody's brain, and that's what everyone is valued. That's where everyone's valued. That's where everyone's attention is.
That's
And
that's the other thing we was talking about too, is like how we kind of have modern Latin because of all that, like the way that we
exactly.
talk digitally through, circle back, the
Yeah.
deliverables, that type of stuff. Like we've almost created this new, because of COVID and like, the amount of Zoom calls and the amount of out of work communication that had to be turned into shorthand. Now we have like this new age Latin that we
I
kind of
thought
like
all
pass
that
around.
was really interesting. Um, because yeah, before it was, back in the day, the Great Depression, like you said, Latin being introduced. It's all these like new ideas and kind of tough times to crawl out of, made for this great generation and time of art and communication and just like human understanding, I guess. And I thought it was an interesting parallel because, as you guys know, this wouldn't have been a video that I just clicked on by myself. I would have just been like, bro, I got shit to do. If I have free time, I want to like laugh or like fuck around. But I'm glad I watched it and I'm glad you sent it to me because it made me think about things in a different way. And I found myself agreeing with a lot of it. So, yeah, it was just interesting info and perspective because it did make me feel hopeful that because I can feel the fatigue on everything that we were just saying. And I can feel that people want the imperfections and the human like personality within the products that they're consuming, which is
Plus,
why
I,
I
I
think
even think that's a
go
huge thing of like why the resurgence of country, I think, was so big. And this is for me, I've just kind of like noticed this from like a micro to macro is like, I think there's a part of that where people love the lack of like overproduction in a lot of country. It's more like stripped back guitars. It's more, you know, the voices are everyone in there. We know what vocal processing goes on for everybody in this industry, but it's less so than a lot of, R&B and stuff. So like, I think the general public, when coming out of, because we've talked about this a lot, like we came up in an era where it was like, oh, we got to make our videos look like they're just as high quality and like studio quality as the big guys to like be able to compete. And then we come into post-COVID era and it's very much, probably a side effect of TikTok, but it's almost like how low budget does it look? Like some of this stuff, I've even seen like, dude, every one of these big, massive celebrities, they'll do their live streams and like pick the most mundane part of their house
hmm
just so that it looks
it's more relatable.
like yes, exactly. And that's like kind of what's taken over is that more like how raw is it? And I think that's a side effect of like almost the major course correction of like for so long, so much overproduced studio oversight. And, the music industry was so MTV motivated and high production value, all that stuff. And then we're just in a new era where it's more like, how early can I find, great art or, in a sense, be like, it's, and that video talks about it a lot Timothy having his big like speech about how he takes his art very seriously and wants to go down as one of the greatest. And there are a lot of people in the current generation who are like, "Oh, that's a try hard. That guy's like trying too hard." Da, da, da." And that's kind of the thing of like why I think the lower budget stuff hits for people because it's not trying too hard and it's not overthought. It's not over even like Kanye doing the bipolar album. Like he took his cover art photo on the way to his listening party, and people were like, "Oh, that's genius." For me, as someone who cares a lot about the stuff I create and that I overthink and overplan and everything, I'm like, "That's lazy." That's for me, I'm
When
like, "That's a lazy move."
he had the album that was just fully recorded on his iPhone, on the voice memos.
Yeah,
Well, maybe not all of it was, but I mean, now the iPhones are so good with the microphone that you can actually do that and get away with it. I
Yeah,
think
you can
back
barely
then,
tell. Yeah.
yeah, now you can barely tell, but back then, I wanna say that was, like, 2018 or something. It's like, I mean, you're kinda purposely choosing lower quality.
oh, yeah.
Dude, yeah, it's the same thing. I see this so often. Someone on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, they'll post a video of them just like playing their song they wrote on their guitar, and it's just them in their room, like playing and singing it, and it blows up massive, like millions of likes, views, and people are like, "We need the song on Spotify, need the song." And then when the song comes out on Spotify, it's like a studio recorded version. It's not what they heard being played on TikTok. And then you go back and you look at that same post and everyone's like, "What happened? Like, this isn't the version we wanted. Like, just post this version on it." Like, people literally um are falling in love with the shittier version of audio.
You know what's wild, Adam, is because this has been happening to artists forever, but now this is the first time in history that like the collective like, audience can have it happen as well. That's just collective audience demoitis. That's literally demoitis on a mass scale. But, like, back in the day, it was only the artist and the producer knew about the song until the world got it, and a lot of times the artist would get mad at how the producer treated the song, and now we have this new it's great to tease the stuff, and it's a good way to build hype, but, yeah, you get that happening too, where it's like, "Oh, you've exposed everyone to demoitis who like isn't even in the field to know what they're actually going through. We know enough about what we do and the stuff that happens psychologically for us when we are, gestating our art. But for the general public, they don't know what demoitis is.
Mhm.
They all they go is this don't sound like what I heard.
Yeah,
I'm
they
like,
just know I knew this version first, so that's what it should be for the end of time, and if it changes, I'm gonna be pissed off.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. Another
crazy.
part of the video that I really liked was talking about how a lot of kids at this point, I mean, I think our generation kind of caught the tail end of it. But anyone that's like younger than me, probably like in their early 20s, or I mean, I think generally I'm talking about like if some kid is between the ages of like 5 and 18 right now. A lot of those kids grew up um in the social media world. Like a lot of kids get phones like very early, and there's a whole thing on social media where it is your like highlight reel of your life. Like when you go on Instagram, you're going to see everyone's best moments. You're going to see the pictures where they got the best angle of themselves. You're gonna hear the song recordings where they just nailed it right on the right take after they recorded it 15 times. You don't see everyone's failures. Like, you don't see that time where someone, got broken up with and they're crying and they're depressed, and you don't see when someone's learning to play piano and they're like fumbling the keys. And so it's created this like almost era of the kids are like afraid to be vulnerable and afraid to be cringe, and so therefore no one is stepping into a boundary of like taking risks and like trying something new because everyone's so afraid of like, well, I've looked perfect on social media, like, up to this point, so now I can't, like, break this persona. And the video was saying that just, like, a prediction of, like, into the 2030s, the people that are gonna be winning, the people that are gonna be striving in life are the ones that are, like, kinda overcome that and be like, "I'm not afraid to look like an idiot
Yeah.
if I'm doing something new and, like, getting better
Oh,
at something."
I had
yeah.
this written down. I was, like, kinda taking notes. What you're saying is spot on, and I think another layer of that is those kids that are afraid to look imperfect online, they're also afraid to look imperfect in private or in a more intimate setting. Like if us three got in a room trying to make a song, you know, Adam's like, "Oh, I shouldn't try this lyric because like, what if it's not what they think is cool?" And then like they're cringing at me. But like, what if that was the best idea of the whole day, and that was actually the fucking tagline of the
Right.
song? And it's like, well, you're getting robbed of that risk taker kind of mentality because that's how you make something great. You know?
He said something
Yep.
along the lines of, like, "Imagine if Michelangelo never made his art because people would
Yeah,
clown
flame
him
them in the
for it on
TikTok
TikTok."
comments.
Yeah, like,
Crazy.
it would never happen. Yeah.
And that's what made me most hopeful. Like, if that's the way it's going, then I think there's just going to be a lot of great stuff coming in the next 10 years, which is great.
Listen, I think we're just coming out of like a lot of people think like everything's so doom and gloom, but like Cat Williams said it, and like what followed was true. It was like 2024, everything's coming out. Kind of started rolling that way, and I think we're coming out of a scripted society, and I think that's what a lot of people are feeling is like we know now, like even like all this stuff going on with Hamas and everything. What's really going on is a big war of who can maintain control of propaganda. That's really what's going on so many levels. And I think that's a lot of the pain that we're feeling, that friction, and that is we're learning how to be like an authentic society, like a truly authentic society. Like we have to rip the band-aids off of like what everything's really been for a bit, and that's going to be some pain and some growing pains for sure. But I think that's part of the friction is we're coming out of this like overly performative. The '60s were the worst with it. Like, the '60s were so, like, performative, and all the sitcoms showed you how to be a family, and when you come into this source if this comes up in the family, you treat it like this, and
Hmm.
it's just all these
Leave it
different,
to
like,
Beaver style.
prescriptions. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think we're finally coming out of, like, this societal, you know, charade, I guess. It's at least that's how it feels kind of to me.
Adam, what the hell are you laughing at over there, by the way? I saw you
Nothing.
smirking when he was saying something. And
He just got so animated into that, and he said something about, "You just rip it apart," and I was like, "Oh, yeah, dude."
that's
It
why
was
I
just
love Luke, dude. This is why touring with Luke is so fun because you got a long drive to Houston or something, and he just get in the back seat with him and just fucking open your ears. He's
Went
gonna
down
tell
some
you
rabbit holes. Rabbit holes.
it's good stuff.
I didn't wanna start just bursting out laughing on a
Well, I'm
podcast, so
listening and like Luke's making a great point, and then I just see Adam like cheesing out the corner of my eye. I'm like,
Oh,
what's going on
God.
with that little brain over there?
it was just Luke, dude. I love him. I love hearing him talk.
By
I
the way,
appreciate
Cat
y'all.
Williams is a comedian, and
Yeah, that
Leave It
got
to
me.
Beaver was a sitcom in like the '60s. That's what we were talking
For
about.
you
I know Cat
youngins.
Williams. I know who Cat Williams is, that
Good, good, good.
creepy guy. That guy gives me the creeps, dude.
Why?
Wild man.
Cat Williams freaks me out, bro.
Dude, he's the best.
He's weird. He's hiding something.
He's like 5'2" also.
He was on the Theo Von
Little tiny
podcast,
man.
and Theo was like, "Oh, like, what do you think happens when you die?" And Cat Williams, with a straight face, goes, "I was promised I wouldn't have to think about that. I wouldn't have to worry
Dude,
about that."
that's so
What are you
spot
talking
on.
about, bro?
I was promised I wouldn't have to worry about it.
Yeah, that
Uh,
guy creeps me out. Um, I don't know what Leave It to Beaver is,
that's okay.
so
You don't need to think about it. It was just what we just said exactly.
okay.
It's just
Um,
like that uppity '60s sitcom, everything's hunky dory. The worst thing that happened in the episode was someone got a bloody nose.
yeah, and everyone has
Got
their
it.
hair slicked to the side and their shirt buttoned up, and
They
no,
fetched the butter,
no one
Margaret.
swears.
Oh, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
No, it's all good stuff. Luke, I wanted to ask you because especially, I mean, Adam's been doing this for a long time too, but Adam's just a little bit younger than us. We've been like in the creative world for like a really long time, and when I met you, you were already 5, 6 years into like doing this, whether it was full time or not, but like really pursuing the art part of it. Forget the logistical financial part of it, right? Like, do you feel frustrated in this kind of ecosystem and place that we're in terms of how your art is connecting with people versus how it used to? Or do you like what are just where is like your head at based on kind of everything that we're talking about, and how do you feel like it's going to change outside of what we already said, like within the next few years? Like, because I would assume you feel very optimistic about kind of this idea, which is why you wanted to talk about it because it's something that really struck a chord with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, especially like the way I've gone, I've been very lucky in my career to do things the way that I have done them in a very specific way where I, have very much gotten to tell my story in a big way. And, there's a lot of people who have gone to similar numbers and stuff as me whose stories were concocted by an American Idol committee or stuff like that. And I'm very lucky personally, I know, to have told my story and have enough people give a damn to keep it alive for as long as they have. It's a very I understand that that's a privilege. Um, I wasn't there's some songs where I'll go in being like, "Oh, this is just gonna hit up for a lot of people." But for the most part, a lot of what I've been able to do is very much be me and live off of that. That was my dream. That was my big, I there were times when I was younger where, you see things with a level of ignorance and I want this, want that. And, at the end of the day, I knew that my want was to have the freedom to conduct my life in the way that I want to and create in the way that I want to. So I knew that was always going to be an uphill battle to a degree. Um, I think for a bit, I was kind of like discouraged post COVID. I think people, I have this quote. I do believe that post COVID, there's a lot of people who got locked inside and never came out. I do
Uh-huh.
believe that. I think it's hard for there's some takes I'll see on art or like stuff where it's just like there's some great stuff, music, films, stuff that has come out since COVID, but I just see a society that's less open to connecting to it and like, you know, really allowing themselves to because there's just this wall of like, oh, anything past this point sucks, It's like not even allowing themselves like and I think I used to take things personally of like how hard it is to reach people with social media now. And, I deduce those things a lot. Number one, I don't know, it's just COVID split the world in a lot of different ways where I think a lot of people's paths diverged and changed and very polarizing ideas of like what people want out of life and what they relate to in the wants for that life. Um, and I think that's been interesting to navigate. But also for me, I see a lot of people complain the same way I have in the past and different things of like not reach and being able to reach people with stuff and stuff like that. And I find solace knowing that like everyone's struggling to cut through all the noise nowadays. And like, especially with AI, it's like, oh, there were already this many posts and this many hundreds of thousands of songs uploaded to Spotify a day that we're all competing with. And now you're telling me that 3x, 4x that are happening because people can generate a song in 5 seconds and upload it in 10 minutes. And you got hundreds of people doing that a day. And you're telling me I'm competing with all these but, like, it's not even that we compete on Spotify with other I shared a post on Twitter the other day of, like, we're not just competing with other musicians are the least of our worries. Like, for anyone let me just say this on a if you're a local artist and you're beefing with another local artist, your head needs to get out of your damn ass. Um, because
It's fact.
because your competition is not the other guy in your little town.
Yeah.
Your competition is boobs. Your competition is Netflix. Your
Stranger Things and
competition
shit.
is
Yeah.
YouTube. Stranger Things.
Hey,
It
hey.
Well, it's true. It's like we're all competing for
it's
attention,
attention.
is what you're saying. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the thing is like I've seen other artists really complain and I have said it to them before and they never even thought about it. And I'm like, yo, like every big studio is struggling to even tell people their new movies coming, their new artist albums coming. Like, and you think that we as individual with everything stacked against us as independent artists aren't going to come up against the same friction in a way bigger way? Like you're delusional if you don't think we're affected as well. And that it all rides on the quality of your art. That's a very toxic thing too. Unless you're making complete trash, there's so many people who I think are unfortunately, they are just, like, disillusioned by the current and they make great art. They're it's sometimes the most talented people I know, but they're also a lot of times the most introverted. The people who are the least who are gonna, like, go out and shout about their worth and pull a Timothy and be like, I take my art very serious. It's very hard for some very introverted, very talented artists to really stand up in an era that rewards that so heavily. Is the people who are in your face are some of the most rewarded currently because they're able to speak above the noise. Are they necessarily the best people to look up to and the role models? But that's like just like any other thing is like a lot of these people in politics. Are they the best people to be in politics? No. There's probably a chip on their shoulder and a bunch of trauma that they're trying to overcome. You know, it's like that sort of thing where I I am concerned in that way. But also that's what I hope from this little segment I've kind of taken here. I hope artists on the come up take this away from it. It's not just don't take all of this and be like, "Oh, it's just the quality of my art. I suck." Like
Yeah.
it you should not do that because I've seen people who there's some people who should believe that 100%, but I've seen people who are very talented who make great art and it's not cutting through, it's not seen. And that they have that outlook. They're like, "Oh, it's just me. I suck." And it's like I'd hate for those type of people to be the ones who are, starved and that's what I really so I think people need to realize that like it's a widespread thing of like it's hard to reach people through the internet through any way right now. It's just on a psychological level, post COVID with people on an individual level, to the way that all these social media sites now run. It's not just it's so many different factors.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
To me, the only way to make sure that you cut through eventually, because it is extremely difficult, like you said, is to be open-minded in the way you adapt to the current times. Like, I'm not saying, all right, everyone's got to post 5 TikToks a day now. Like, you got to do whatever version of that is to make sense and feels authentic, or like, you don't have to adapt all the way, but I think you have to be open-minded and not be so set in your ways. And then also ultimately just be consistent. And if you do both of those things, like something's gonna give at some point and you'll figure it the fuck out. But yeah, I hate to see artists or creators of any kind that are talented and have a ton of potential just go, yeah, I don't know, it's too hard. I'm just gonna stop because yeah, it's Instagram's just not showing my posts to my followers anymore. So guess I'm just not a rapper anymore. That's like crazy. Like things are always gonna adapt. If you're in it for the right reasons and you really believe that you have something inside of you that needs to be communicated through art, then you just have to do that over and over and over again and try to find ways to make the most of the situation. And that's a lot easier said than done most of the time. But uh
on that note, too, Dylan, I want to talk about expectation just a little bit because I think about this a lot too. Um, People, you gotta be aligned with your expectations and your art. There's, like, a lot of people are like I've seen people, "Oh, they're posting, nothing's reaching, nothing's" and at the same time, the same people who will say this haven't posted a reel in a week, or this or that, or anything that, like, would've you gotta throw something out there to be like if you've thrown enough things out there, and then you can sit there and go, "Oh, boo-hoo, why me?" But, like, there's a lot of things where it's like, I've seen people be like, "Oh, it's not even worth" like, I haven't seen you put out a song, put out a video. Well, what do you think is moving? What do you think is just gonna, apparate, you know? And that's like a big even for me, I have songs where I'm like, "Oh, this will reach a lot of people. I think this will be" there's some songs I put out where I'm just like, "This is very niche. This is very for me. I don't think it's gonna get the most streams. This is something I really wanted to make for me." And then I put it out, and when it doesn't get the most streams, I don't feel away because I had that
yeah,
expectation
you made a
of
choice.
being
Yeah.
yeah, creatively, I wanted to do this. There's other times where, yeah, it sucks if you creatively put everything you truly believe in to the side and go, "I'm gonna make a hit," and then it doesn't hit. And then it's like, "Well, I threw all my morals and values out the window, and it didn't hit.
Yeah.
I'm a piece of shit."
That's why you
It's like
can't do that. You gotta pick a battle.
but it's the expectations. You gotta have the expectations ready for what you're going into with, the tools you have at your disposal or the approach you're taking to it?
Adam?
Very true. All very true. I know I haven't done a lot of talking, but I'm just enjoying learning, listening. I know a podcast is more about talking, but you guys are saying a lot of good stuff. I didn't feel a need to jump in on any of that.
Good. Yeah, I wanna
Good
make sure
time.
I'm trying to let everybody talk because we're used to only having 2 of us.
Yeah.
Um and I knew Luke would have a lot to say, so I'm just trying to like do what you're doing too and just soak it up.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, no, it's good to hear your perspective because you and I have talked about a lot of this stuff that, off air and just trying to navigate what you're doing currently, what you're going to do next, all this. And yeah, there's just going to be certain choices that you make where it's like, okay, this might not result in X, Y, and Z that's going to like make you rich or like the next like huge artist. But I know you're okay with those decisions because at the end of the day, you're one of those people that is like truly an artist first,
Thank
and
you.
just trying to find the balance of how to make this connect and reach the people that deserve that art because there is going to be some strategy and consistency that goes along just the product, right? But not doing shit that like isn't abstract or isn't what you should be doing. That's kind of like the tough balance for me, like with from a manager mindset of like, how do we balance this? So it's valuable for other people to hear too because you're not the only one that's frustrated, even in this conversation. Like I'm sure, I can't speak fully for Adam, but I have times where I'm frustrated too. I'm like, the fuck, like I'm working hard.
Definitely.
This is good. Like, why isn't this connecting like way bigger? But going back to what I was saying, just about consistency and building it slowly, that's what it's going to take because ultimately, if you do things the way that you envision them, the right people are going to be the ones that do connect with it, even if it's a smaller number than reaching the masses and like having a viral moment or whatever. Um,
That's also that's how you're able to be consistent with it too. I talk to people about this because I think about this a lot. You know, people come, oh, I have this great idea for TikTok. And it's like, oh, that's great, but if it works, you're that person forever. Do you want to be that forever? Like
yeah,
I think a lot of people have that happen to them where they're like, well, now I'm the this guy, and it's like, oh, well, like
yeah,
we know artists where they've gone off in a different tangent and became massive in that world, and their artist stuff, like, no one even knew that was a thing, and, like, they're like, "Well, I got into this to wanna be a musician or this, but, this other ploy I used to try to get recognition and seen as that artist actually became bigger than me." Even, like, Wheeler Walker Jr. is that was one of his bits that just became so big, he was like, "Imma just do this one all the time." And it's like some people, that's for them. Like that's what they're about and it works and that's their thing. But I think a lot of people, that's something I try to pass to people about this social media stuff is like, yeah, you might have a great idea and it's but like if it works, do you want to be that forever? Do you want to be that guy? That's your thing. You
yeah.
know, it's
It's a
it's
lot
it's a hard
easier.
balance.
It's a lot easier to be consistent when you're being yourself, and it's a lot
Also,
easier to
like
talk when you're telling the truth. You know?
there's so much of, like you said, someone, originally they just wanna make music, but then they're finding some other way to, like, share their music, and that becomes bigger than them, and it feels like politics is a big one, like, everyone on social media is, like, a politician, and there's so many music artists I follow that randomly, like, attach themselves to some, like, niche group of whatever it may be, politics, or even if it's not politics, anything that's just, like, some niche group, and that becomes more of a, like, precedent in their life over the fact that they were just trying to make music in the first place. Um and that sucks, dude. That really sucks. And I think that's a byproduct of what you're talking about of like everyone is trying to in this big like ocean of music artists and ocean of social media posts and everyone's trying to break through and everyone's trying to build a community there starts to and I'm guilty of it too, there starts to these gears start turning about like, well, how can I get people to see my stuff? How can I get people to buy in? How can I get people to know who I am? Da 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 da. And there's so many questions that compile on top of just the baseline question of how do I make a song that people love? Because it's about so much more than that. Um, that troubles me as an artist a lot, because that's the first part is all the making the song is really all I want to do. Like, I think that um I don't want to be some like social media personality,
Yeah.
where people like go out and they're just like, oh yeah, like I know some of his songs, but really I just know him because like he's got good content. Like that to me is like a prison almost. Like I want to make songs. The whole reason that I even have social media is so that people can like hear my music and nothing else. I think if my social media ever became a place where the music was secondary, I would just be off it. Like I would just go like have a wife and kids and live in the woods and just be like, yo, fuck this. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I think finding out what the thing is that works for your content that does connect with a ton of people that will ultimately funnel those people into your music is a very hard thing to do. So when people do it successfully, I give them props because it's like a tough task, but I often wonder, are they happy doing that content? Back to like what Luke was saying. Like, is this like what you actually want to do? And if so, like, you fucking cracked the code and like hats off to you because you're making the music you like and you're doing some form of content that is super authentic to you. That's just ultimately just like furthered your reach, you know? But I think a lot of people don't like the content that they're making or aren't passionate about it or just doing it just because of the result of more eyeballs. And yeah, like you said, that feels like a prison. Like I don't want to do that.
I
So
just
it's just
I
you
have
got to
such
do what
a
works for you at the end of the day.
me and Dylan have talked about this at length, is like the almost the privilege of taste. I think is like a huge play in like knowing what to create and, having that taste to be able to create things at a high level. But I think that's almost like, even like when we talk about AI or something like that, it's like some people are just not gonna know, you know, like when I listen to a song, when we listen to songs, we're like, or we listen to our songs, we're like, would I listen to this if it wasn't me? Like there's a big part of that of like taste wise, would I enjoy this as me? I see some videos of people that they post for like in an effort to get the music out, where I just watch it and I'm just like, when I make my videos and go to post them, I'm like, I have that thought in my head of like, if I came across this, would I dive in further to what it's trying to get me to interact with? And like, I have that thought, and we have that thought, but
Yeah.
maybe it's just a taste privilege thing. But, there's some videos I see where, I hate the post of like, "Oh, my manager says I have to post more and I gotta." It's like so breaking the fourth wall. It's like no one's actually gonna engage with what you're talking about here because you just from the beginning announced how little you posting about it meant to you. Like it's just it's some weird stuff there, which is I think it's a taste thing, but also just like it's not just like a magical equation of like, oh, if you post 5 times a day, I heard if you post 5 times a day for 30 days, you'll blow up.
Right.
And it's like, no, the quality is everything. Like, think about the great musicians we've found, or you've found, or anybody that's found. There's probably a lot of times an engaging video that like brought you in to be like, I'm intrigued. I'm interested. It wasn't just I wasn't just counting how many times that particular artist post. Do they post 5 times a day? If
All
they
right.
didn't
This is
post
the
five
12th
times a
one in
day,
4 days. So you know what? I'm actually going to follow you on Spotify and go to your show now.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It's not the number of it, it's the quality of it and the way that and I think a lot of people just like with this whole I get annoyed by, content and whatever, but like this whole idea of like putting no numbers to it and being like, "Oh, I should do this many," and they say this. That's not for anybody.
Yeah.
That's not selling it for you. That's not helpful to your history of content when people find your it's nothing. It does nothing for you.
I think the intention behind that, at least the way I look at it, is it kind of trains you to be non-negotiable about the reps that you're putting in towards that, right? So it's like
That's fair.
if you're trying to make something that's engaging and connecting with a certain audience, the more times you try it, the more you'll have a higher batting average essentially, right? So you can't shit post 20 times a week and expect
Yeah,
to
but
like
if I'm trying to
wow,
make a quesadilla and I keep putting peanut butter instead of cheese in there, it doesn't matter how many quesadillas I make.
totally,
They're
yeah.
gonna suck.
But by the fifth or 10th time that you make that quesadilla and bite into it, you're like, I got to do something else.
We
Where,
hope.
where you might be sitting there, with no food in your house and be like, you know what, I could fucking make a quesadilla if I wanted, but you just don't know how to do it yet. Of
Also, like, I think that there's some luck that goes into social media
course.
working, like things blowing up, things whatever the algorithm, whatever the hell you post time of day. Some videos tend to work and others just don't. And I think a good comparison that dude LaRussell basically was like, if every post that I make is an opportunity for like something to go viral and I make $1 million, and he was like, let's just compare it to like basketball, if I put you at the half court line and I say, if you make this shot from half court, you're going to get $1 million. Would you rather have one shot at the basket or 1,000 shots at the basket? He's like, I'd rather have 1,000 shots. And he's like, that's why I'm posting 5 times a day, because it's just like some weird game of luck. And I want to try to make it in 1,000 shots rather than like one,
And
which
here's what
makes
I'll say.
sense as from like the luck based thing, but that mindset will definitely dilute quality. If you're just going for like taking reps, taking shots, if that's your focus, quality is naturally going to decrease.
Yeah. I think him
I'm gonna
specifically,
grab my charger in my bag.
I think he just does a really good job at doing both though. Like
Yeah,
he's not posting like random bullshit every day. Some of it might not be someone that's going to go viral or someone that speaks to me, but I think he's attempting to make engaging content for his community every time he posts. And he has the privilege of doing it a lot because he's figured out what works for him and, probably hired a team to some extent to do like a lot of that work. But
yeah,
I just think, because I totally agree with what Luke is saying about like it's all about the quality. But I also think that if you have to choose one or the other and post like one time a month, then like it's really good, or post all the fucking time and figure it out. In this market, I think the second one is gonna connect better, and then you can earn the privilege of not having to do it all the time because you learned what works. But you can't, like you just said before, people are complaining, but they haven't fucking made a song in 3 months or posted a reel in however long. Like you have to show up in order to have a chance, and whatever that means for you, that's what, like, whatever consistency level you can manage without making content or music that is just absolute dog shit and you know it in your soul. That's like the level that you need to be doing it at. And there has to be some sort of accountability for yourself to like show up and do it. Otherwise, you're just going to be in that, yeah, I don't know, it's not working, so I'm just not going to do it. And then 2 weeks go by and you didn't do shit. It's like, that's never going to work, bro. You know? So I think there's a balance.
I get that. I definitely but yeah, I think for the very niche of what I'm talking about, I think when people come off as that like that very particular just like they said I should be posting more, that type of thing, like, you gotta look at that as, like, the person making it and be like, "Let me look at this as a consumer. Would this get me excited? And, like, does it even come across to me as, like, someone who's really being purposeful and really standing behind their art if someone's acting so sarcastic about their attempts to have it heard? No, I'm not gonna engage." Like,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, that's back to what we were talking about of the expectation of things. Like, don't expect that type of video to be the one that's gonna finally like break the camel's back. I do get what you're talking about of just getting almost like on a subconscious level, just getting used to. I do have a problem with like I love a lot of Gary V's stuff, but he does have those videos where he's just like, "Just post it, anything, just post it, put the post it." That's wrong. Like
Yeah, yeah,
what
yeah.
we're talking about, like there has to be quality and intent behind it. It's not just post in a post. Like even we've had friends where they've had stuff that has nothing to do with what they do musically go viral, and they're like, "Look at this, I got millions of views." It's like, yeah, it's great. What's that funneling into for
Yeah,
you? Nothing.
for sure.
It doesn't funnel anything. Like that's one thing with Connor Price where I'm very impressed with his ability to convert. There's a lot of people who have his same like Instagram type of following and stuff, but they can't actually get numbers on Spotify.
Yeah,
He actually converts.
for sure.
I'm like, that's like on a crazy level. Like comparatively to a lot of people, insane conversion. But that's so rare. Like even what was it? I was looking at Chanel West Coast months ago, and I was like, what is she like 2 million? Instagram followers. I think she has less monthly listeners than me, and I'm like at a low
Right.
currently.
Yeah.
Like it's like it doesn't matter how much like eyeballs you have on you if no one cares. If they
Totally.
don't care what you're actually creating, it does not matter. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
what show you end up on. It doesn't matter. I saw years ago like there, I'm like, "Who is this guy? I never seen that." Like, "Oh, he won The Voice last season." I had no idea who this man was. He had 17,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. This man won The Voice a
Yeah.
year before that.
Yeah.
That's
It's crazy.
crazy.
Yeah.
And how many
That's
people watch The
crazy.
Voice? I don't know. Millions, I'm assuming.
Yeah, dude. Like so many people, that's their little advice. Oh, go on American. They hear you're a singer or whatever. They're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
you should go on American Idol. Or you
Well,
go on The Voice."
that's insane. If anyone's giving you that advice, don't listen to them.
Tell your aunt to f off.
Yeah. It's like people that, um,
You should call Eminem. You should get
yeah,
Drake
I
on
was
that song.
literally just gonna say that. Like in Luke's YouTube comments, like, bro, you ever heard of Eminem? You should do a song with him
Have you ever thought about working with Eminem? I feel like it'd be really good for you.
because you guys both rap and you guys are both white.
Yeah.
So that's where both of you guys live in my brain. So like obviously you guys know each other. Just send him the beat.
Right? Right?
All white people know each other.
All right, guys. I think this podcast is getting a little out of hand.
If we go any longer, we're gonna get off the rails and someone's gonna say something they regret. And I don't have a lot of time before I leave for tour to edit this. So,
We gotta keep the workload light.
but yeah, dude, thanks for jumping on. Really enjoyed this convo. I think you have a really valuable and unique perspective on not only this, but a ton of shit. So we'll have you back on once we, you know, once we miss you again, which will probably be like a couple years or something. So we'll
I
have
look
Couple
forward to
years.
that time.
Once we miss you.
Season 55.
Luke, do you have anything you want to plug or talk about to let our audience know? Because there's like 25 million people that listen to this every Wednesday when it comes out.
Wow.
So yeah, you could probably get to like 17,000 monthly listeners if you plug your stuff.
Let's go. No, I appreciate you guys having me. This is awesome. I guess just everyone have a great 2026. According to that video we watched, I'll have Dylan or Adam link it in the comments.
Yeah,
But apparently that video tells us we only have 4 years left of hell. So
just hold on tight. Just white
Just
knuckle it
hold
for the
on.
next fucking 48 months.
You got it.
But hell yeah, thank you for having me, guys.
Yeah, of course. Adam, any closing thoughts?
No, man, I enjoyed the conversation. Really thought-provoking stuff. 4 more years of hell, 2030s. We're gonna go up.
Right.
It's gonna be lit.
Smooth sailing.
I appreciate y'all.
Cat Williams is
Thanks for
president.
tapping in. We'll chat next Wednesday. Thanks, y'all.